What's going on, knuckleheads? It's George with Fighters Rep. Hey, if you guys like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion that we have every week, at least a couple times, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and be a part of a Knucklehead Nation. So first things first, knuckleheads, this is our Germaine de Randamie versus Aspen Ladd Preview Prediction. We've also got, maybe a couple interesting boxing matches that we want to discuss. But overall, as Marco Martinez in the chat is saying, it's a slow week for fights, but obviously lots of things going on in the month of July because we will be returning to Seal Beach and live right here on YouTube for Fighters Rep 7, Fighting Pride's the first of its kind team versus team event. But let's get into the Aspen Ladd versus Germaine de Randamie women's bantamweight main event, UFC Fight Night 155. It's going down on Saturday on ESPN+. We'll just take a look real quick at the tail of the tape for these two very tough ladies, and then we'll make a prediction. Then maybe we'll talk about some boxing matches we're interested in, make some predictions there, and I'll turn it over to you guys. Excuse me. So first things first, their ages. Now, this is pretty important in this fight because there is quite a gap in the ages of these two women, with Germaine de Randamie being at the disadvantage at 35 years of age. Who knows? Perhaps she's priming. But typically at 35, I think people start to hit the tail end of their career. She's going up against an undefeated Aspen Ladd who's only 24 years old. I think when you're 24 years old, you're undefeated in the UFC. Aspen Ladd's had 3 fights, I believe, in the UFC consecutive that she's won. She hasn't lost since the amateurs. This is going to be a tough fight. And this, I believe, is going to be an all-action fight because Aspen Ladd's won, I believe, a couple Fight of the Night honors since she's been in the UFC. Very exciting fighter. So this should be a good one. This should be a banger. This should be something to further develop women's MMA and something that'll take us out of the Amanda Nunes, Shevchenko sort of paradigm. Let us see some other ladies that are competitive and something that I think is exciting for the sport. Let's go now to height. Big difference in height, and definitely a advantage for Germaine de Randamie, who is 5'8" versus her 5'5" opponent in Aspen Ladd. Will this come into play? Potentially. I think, the paradigm has sort of shifted with height being a huge factor. I think in MMA and in boxing, shorter fighters have recently shown that they're very capable. Typically, I think reach is a little bit more important, but height not so much. But that being said, if you do think height is a major advantage, then Germaine de Randamie has a major advantage here. I don't think it's so much of an advantage. I think reach is more important, but I digress, and we could agree to disagree on that one. They're going to be both fighting in the 135-pound weight division, and their reach is also the pretty big difference in their reach. Now, despite Aspen Ladd only being 3 inches shorter than Germaine de Randamie, she actually has 5 inches less in reach. So she's listed as 66 inches as far as her reach. Germaine de Randamie with an impressive 71 inches for a person 5'8" inches tall. 71 inches is no joke. She's got some really long arms. Now, again, I have a bit of an issue with combat sports using wingspan as opposed to reach. That's actually, sorry about that. That's actually what's being measured. It's not actual reach that's being measured, which would be, I think, more accurate if they measured it. If somebody's squared up facing forward from the shoulder to the tip of the fist. But what they actually measure is wingspan. And so that could be a little bit inaccurate as far as reach goes because the person with a wider shoulder or wider shoulders is going to have an advantage in wingspan, despite possibly having shorter arms. So I definitely think the regime of measuring people's reach needs to be changed. It needs to be from shoulder to the end of the fist, like this when somebody's squared up in a typical punching stance, as opposed to wingspan. But there you have it. It looks like the physical attributes tend to favor Germaine de Randamie, especially with that massive reach advantage that she has. But as far as age and momentum, it might be favoring Aspen Ladd. She's never lost. She's 8-0. She's won, I think, 3 fights in a row in the UFC. And she's undefeated. She doesn't know what defeat is since the amateurs. Now, Germaine de Randamie is the favorite in this fight, but I'm going to go against the grain with my prediction here. I'm going to go with Aspen Ladd for the win. I think she's just too young, on too much of a roll. She's not going to want to lose. I think she's going to want it more, especially at this age. And I think she's going to be able to pull off the slight upset here. It looks like that Germaine de Randamie is a slight favorite, but I'm going to go with Aspen Ladd on this one. So, you guys tell me what you think about the fight, who you think is going to win, and, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, we're going to switch over to boxing because there are a couple of interesting things going on in boxing right now. I was looking at ESPN's boxing schedule. Big shout out to ESPN for their boxing schedule and MMA schedule. Always very informative. When I want to figure out what I'm doing or what I'm talking about, I head over there right away. And one really interesting thing that I saw was that they're having an event tomorrow, July 12th, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where Amir Khan is going to be fighting Billy Deeb for in a 12-round bout at welterweight, which I find very interesting. Because both of these guys are kind of now in the twilight of their career, and B, because I remember Billy Deeb being smaller than welterweight. But C, I find this interesting because they're fighting in Saudi Arabia. Amir Khan is a Muslim. I'm not sure about Billy Deeb, but I know for a fact Billy Deeb is of Lebanese descent, so of Arab descent. So I think it's very cool that they're putting on this show in Saudi Arabia. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this in Saudi Arabia, and I think it's pretty cool that the sport is sort of expanding. We've also got Huey Fury on the card taking on Samuel Peter, who's been way past his prime for a very long time. So that's looking like a tune-up fight there. So I definitely see Huey Fury winning that fight. But as far as the Amir Khan Billy Deeb fight, I thought Amir Khan looked extremely poor against Terrence Crawford in his last showing. Billy Deeb is also kind of, hit the twilight of his career. So it's almost the battle of two guys that are kind of checked out at this point. It's more like it's probably more like an exhibition, even though it's 12 rounds. But I'm not sure who will win that fight. It's interesting to me that fight even got made, and it's definitely a fight that's being made to sort of, attract the people of the region, where you have Muslim, Kashmiri, I believe he is, in Amir Khan, or Pakistani. And then you have Billy Deeb, who is of Arab descent. I think that's pretty cool, but, not a fight with any sort of serious implications, since I don't think neither guy is ever going to get back to the level, to the championship level. Then we've got out of Newark, New Jersey on the 13th, Saturday night on ESPN and ESPN Deportes, we've got Shakur Stevenson taking on Alberto Guevara in a 10-round fight. I think this is going to be a wash for Shakur Stevenson. He's going to absolutely wipe Alberto Guevara out. So if you're anywhere near a sports book for that one, you definitely want to put all your money on Shakur Stevenson, but he's probably not going to win you much back, because there's a huge disparity there, I believe, in skill. And then another interesting thing is Vijender Singh, the Olympian from India, is going to be fighting a guy named Michael Snyder on the undercard in an 8-round fight. I'm really excited about his development. I think it's cool when you got fighters from different countries because they appeal to new fans and grow the sport. And so I'm really interested to see how he performs. Finally, actually, we've got a couple more fights I want to talk about. On July 13th on ESPN Plus in London, Daniel Dubois is fighting Nathan Gorman. It's going to be 12 rounds for the vacant British heavyweight title. I actually think this is an important fight. These are two guys that are coming up fast. They're both looking like really good prospects. And I'm actually interested to see who wins this fight. I think Gorman's got a little bit more professional experience, but Dubois has been knocking people out left and right, and there's a lot of hype behind him. And this is a fight I'm really interested in seeing. I think I don't know who I'd even bet on in a fight like that. I mean, it's a really, really close fight, and that's always refreshing in boxing when you have a close fight like that, because typically, there's such a huge disparity in the skill between the A side and the B side. Also, Joe Joyce, one of my favorite heavyweights, because he's like the dark horse of the heavyweight division, taking on American Bryant Jennings. And obviously, I would love for Bryant Jennings to win the fight, being an American. But, man, Joe Joyce is an absolute killer from the UK. And I think he might be one of the best heavyweights in the world. He just needs a shot. He's 33 years old. He's got good experience. He just doesn't have that many professional fights, but his amateur background is pretty amazing. He looks to be the real deal whenever he gets in there. It's just, they need to kind of get him a big fight already. I'm hoping this is a good step in the right direction. I think he could probably beat Daniel Dubois or Nathan Gorman at this point, but that's just a matter of opinion. I also think Joe Joyce would give any of the big-time heavyweights a run for their money at this point, but there's just too much risk and not enough reward for any of the big heavyweights or any of the lead heavyweights at this time to fight a guy like Joe Joyce, who I believe, just from watching him fight, is a real problem. I think he probably stops Bryant Jennings, in this fight. Now, finally, the only other fight I kind of wanted to touch on was the title fight between Ray Vargas and Tomoki Kameda. It's for Vargas's WBC junior featherweight title. I'm not a huge follower of either guy, but I did wanted to touch on it. I don't know much about either guy. I don't want to give a prediction on this one, but maybe some of you guys are interested, want to educate me on some of these fights. Let me know what you guys think, especially with this Ray Vargas versus Tomoki Kameda. It's actually happening right nearby in Carson, California. I'm assuming at the StubHub Center. Might be an exciting fight. Looks like there's a Diego De La Hoya on the undercard, which I'm sure they're building up. And I'm excited to see that. And it looks like there's also a fight in Minneapolis where Gerald Washington, El Gallo Negro, is getting back in there. And he's going to be fighting Robert Helenius, who was a decent heavyweight at one time, but has kind of fallen off since then. So, that's basically all we've got. It's not a very exciting weekend for combat sports unless you're a hardcore fan like myself. Then every weekend is exciting, but not a lot going on. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, please, if you can, you're always welcome to purchase a Fighters Rep t-shirt and continue to support us, or donate in the chat below or in the links below. And now, we'll turn it over to you guys. Tell me what you guys think about these fights. Marco Martinez is saying Uriah Faber returns on Saturday. He's fighting a guy, and I believe it's Ricky Simon or Simone. I don't know how they say that. Forgive me for slaughtering the pronunciation there, but he's fighting a guy who, is on a win streak. Uriah Faber's coming out of retirement at the age of 40. I don't think it's the best fight for him. I think he's better off staying retired, but he might be able to shut me up. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that one. And then the rest of the card looks like a pretty exciting card, for what it's worth. I do think Germaine de Randamie is gonna lose the fight against Aspen Ladd, but we've also got Uriah Faber. We've got Uriah Faber, and we've got Josh Emmett against Mirsad Bektik, which I think is a fantastic fight. Those are two guys that, they can really hurt you, especially Josh Emmett. He's an absolute beast. And that should be a good one. And like Marco, like you're pointing out, Juliana Pena versus Nico Montano, that might be a good one as well. Actually, I think that'll be a very good one. And I don't know why that's on the prelims. I feel like a fight like that should probably be further along. Also, we've got a guy from Black House and Shaman Moraes competing. I'm always excited when a guy from one of the teams down here in SoCal competes, especially Black House. They put a lot of their guys on our Fighters Rep cards. You'll see a lot of them on Fighters Rep 7 on July 27th. Just tune in. But yeah, it's looking like Marco said, like there are a lot of upcomers on this card, a lot of decent fights, a lot of good fighters. So it's not the most, notable star-powered card, but still some decent fights on there and something for us to enjoy and drink to over the weekend. So that's all I got for you at this time, Knuckleheads. Again, please tune in July 27th for Fighters Rep 7. Hit the subscribe button below. Tell me what you think about these fights. And thank you guys so much for your time.